right, I'm a minute behind, but we're just getting started here. That is a really high angle. Okay. For some reason, it's only letting me do. Nope, that's backwards. Okay. It's only letting me do portrait. All right. I guess that'll be enough. Oh, booger. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of start looking through my seeds. Hopefully, we'll get some people on here who are gardening and we can talk about it together. I don't plan to do a great deal of gardening videos this year because it's a lot of what we have going on. Means that our gardening is a little up in the air. So this is just sort of my first look through. I haven't actually taken out any of my gardening stuff. Man, that is such a bizarre angle. Okay. I haven't taken out any of my gardening stuff yet. I haven't even gone through like my seeds from last year or anything. So this is like my first look through. So what I like to do, well, usually, around Christmas and New Year's is when all of the seed catalogs start coming in, and then I just start looking and getting excited and things like that. But I resisted doing that this year, and I'm going to first look at all of the things that I've got, because I think that there can be a tendency to get wrapped up in the excitement of seeds, and then things can get out of control. So I don't want to waste seeds, waste money. I want to be practical about the seeds that I'm buying and making sure that I'm buying them, that I'm actually going to be planting them, or have a high probability that I'll be planting them. So last year I actually bought a ton of garden seeds, and if you followed any of my gardening from last year, we had some things that we needed to change. We needed to change our garden plan because we had other things that we needed to prioritize in our life. And gardening was one of those things that we were able to shift and do more in our backyard instead of a bigger one at our family farm. And so that's just what we did. And it actually worked out really well. It relieved a lot of stress, a lot of time, because it takes a long time to get there. It's like 3-4 hours one way to drive. So it requires planning. We just want to make sure that we're not planting stuff that requires too much, with things that get harvested all at one time. So that would work really well having to travel. But if it's something like tomatoes and cucumbers and the things like that, it doesn't really work well because it doesn't make sense to have to drive that far to get it. So, and I'm not really sure what our plan is this year. I would like to have a really big garden, but I think I need to be practical and think that there's a possibility that we won't. So I'm going to kind of just keep that in mind as I go through these things. Okay, so I like to try to have an idea in my mind about what I'm going to do with my garden, and the things that are coming out of it before I start getting, my seeds and all that kind of stuff, so I know where all this energy is going to be going. Last year, one of my goals initially was to be canning and preserving a lot of food. This year, just over the last, 6 months or so since the gardening season sort of like stopped, I kind of have been thinking that I would like to try focusing a lot more on food that I can actually eat fresh as it's ripening in the garden. There will be some exceptions. Also, if you've followed some of my videos, I've shown some of my bulk sort of vegetable processing, and talked about how I've purchased those from local CSAs. So community supported agriculture, a lot of times they will plant like big crops of certain things that you can buy in bulk specifically to preserve. And so I did that, and it actually worked out really, really nice. We live in a really small house on a really tiny lot, so we really don't have the kind of space that we would need to be able to do something larger like that. If we created a garden out of every square inch we had, we would have a lot more than we get. But we have kids, animals, and we just like to be able to utilize our backyard, so we don't make it all garden space. So anyway, I'm just kind of rambling a little bit about kind of thoughts I have and things kind of coming up. Okay, there we go. Now I can see any messages that might come through. I'm hoping to get some gardeners on here. I mean, I'm just kind of rambling to myself, a couple people popping in and out, but it's so much fun when we can like interact. So if anyone's able to stick around or chime in, I know the timing's kind of funky. My, you know, my pool of subscribers isn't massive, but maybe I can get somebody on here to chat about gardening. Okay. But then, of course, the replay will be up. And I always like to comment and respond to your comments. So if you have anything to add after the fact, please do. Please do so. So when I think, okay, first of all, we live in the northern part of the United States, specifically in Minnesota, close to one of the Great Lakes. Our growing zone, I don't even know what it is. I think it's like a 3 something or other. It's not great. And particularly where we live, because it's so close to the Great Lakes, we're affected by the weather system, similar to how you would be if you were near the ocean, because the lakes are so huge. So even though a lot of our state will have a little bit of a longer growing season, we don't actually get super hot where we are, just because of the house location we have, in addition to the geographical location. So that makes it really, really hard. Like even growing peppers is a massive challenge just because they are such a long season crop. So I'm focusing on speed, things that will grow very quickly, things that are cold hardy, and then things that you can eat continuously and they will continue to provide for you. So in the comments, those are the things I'm looking for. Your favorite things that grow quickly, can stand cool weather, and are like continuously produce a harvest. Now it could be either one of those. It doesn't have to be all of them. Those are just sort of like the main categories I'm looking for. So last year I bought a ton of peas. There's hundreds of pea seeds in here. If we're able to garden at the farm, this is even going to still be kind of hard because I'm going to need to pick these continuously. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but these are in a really good airtight container with a gasket on the top, as well as these hard beans. And I think these are, I have the paper in here, but I don't want to open it up. I think these are snap peas. So different variety, but these were in larger quantity, and I wanted to make sure that they stayed really airtight. So for storage, what I've done since the last year to preserve the germination rate as much as possible, for these I put them in glass jars with those lids. Now I know this is plastic and it probably wasn't the best, but I put them all in here. It's very snug. And then this was also in another container, which was stored in the darkest part of our basement, no light whatsoever. And so that's been very constant. So that's been good. So I do plan to plant peas. So I'm going to start making a list here. I kind of wrote things that I want to pay attention to, but I'm going to make like a list of things for sure. Peas grow great here, and because of the cool climate, they kind of grow all summer. Last summer it didn't really get to the point where it was too hot for them, which was kind of wild. This is going to require a little bit more soil space than we have. If I'm able to, I would love to plant these, but I'm not sure it's going to happen. As far as snap peas go, we don't eat these as much. If you have some great recipes for snap peas, I might try to do some. I know like they're good in stir fries. My kids don't like eating them as fresh as much. They much prefer the shelling peas where they can get them out. They love them like that. So looking for recipes. And then if you preserve these, how do you preserve them? Freeze, I guess. I see them in like stir fry mixes and things like that. But if you have any good ways to preserve that too, that'd be great to know. Okay, so I'm just going to dig in here and see what we have. I had wanted to plant a bunch of flowers last year. Part of why I want to plant things that I can eat continuously is because I think that's part of enjoying a garden. And I get really focused on preservation and harvest. And then if that doesn't turn out, then it's kind of like a bummer. I really want to sink in deeper to enjoying the process of gardening, the growing, and just appreciating it every step along the way. The way we garden in our backyard, which if you go back to my garden planning video from last year, I'm probably going to do it very similarly. We garden in containers that are porous, so the water flows out really easily. There's basically no weeding. Every once in a while, like a grass seed might pop up, or a dandelion. But besides that, they're incredibly low maintenance. So In terms of that, they're super easy. I don't remember where I was going with that, but anyway. And it doesn't really make sense to do some plants in there. Like for example, I would love to grow potatoes. It's just something that I like to grow every year if possible, but we don't have good space here. But if we get into a situation where we have space, I'll be growing potatoes. Potatoes, onions, those are things that I probably won't grow if we're just limited to our backyard again. Okay, so these are pole beans. Did I even plant these last year? Oh yes, I did. But okay, so we also had, so besides our backyard, we did rent a community garden plot last year. And stuff didn't grow that great because I neglected it, to be honest. The stuff that I didn't neglect grew really well. We grew potatoes there and onions and carrots. We got some good cabbage out of that, but the beans were ignored and they were overtaken with weeds. These beans grow really long. If you look at my seed haul videos from last year, you'll see most of these plants because I go through almost all the stuff that I bought, and this is all pretty much new seed. I kind of was starting from scratch. And in those videos, I did like a pop-up of the website, like of the website listing for the individual fruits and like vegetables. So you can kind of see them. And I talk a lot more details about the varieties and things like that. So, but these grow really long, like the actual bean, I think, is what gets really long. Okay, anyway, so we'll see. That's a maybe. So out of these so far, the peas. Okay, that's a flower. We'll talk about that later. Okay, the tomatoes. So I've had such just like this with tomatoes. And I think what I'm going to do is not start any this year myself and just buy started seeds, started plants. Sorry, I just heard someone outside. So I have started seeds very successfully and very not successfully. Given our climate, it's really hard to do it with windows. And so last year I actually did it, and I said, I'm not going to use any artificial light whatsoever. So I was babysitting those plants so much. I would put them out on our front porch because even though it might be cold, if it was sunny, I would leave like the tent on top of the seedlings, and it would just bake, and they grew. And then by the time they were getting too big for that tent, I moved them outside, hardened it. Well, then they kind of could blow in the wind, things like that. And it actually worked really well. But the problem is that some of the things that I grew were like heirloom tomatoes. So there was one called Brandywine, and they're really pretty. I know I talked about it. It's like a reddish, and it's got like these beautiful yellow streaks down the side. But it did not produce very well at all. Like the plant was not prolific. Could have been our environment. The plants grew really well. They put good fruit out, but there just weren't very many per plant. So I don't know if that is just part of this particular tomato or not, but I wasn't pleased. I would much rather go with something tried and true if I'm going to be doing this, and I'm counting on it, and my space is limited. So the other one here I did was a black crim, which is they're supposed to look purpley, like purple. Mine they kind of got a purple look. The top sort of stayed green. I would not grow these again too. I was really excited to grow these heirloom tomatoes, but they just didn't have a good flavor. I thought they were a little mushy. And in fact, I just recently processed the last of our tomatoes from our garden last year, and a lot of the color was just really weird because when it cooks down, it's almost just like a dark green, brownish color. Anyway, it just wasn't something I was super excited about. So here's a speckled Roman tomato. It was an intermediate. I had some tomatoes that did really well last year, but I'm not going to start seeds. I'm just going to buy them all. All right, so we've got zucchini. Okay, and this is my favorite zucchini. It's Pantheon, and these zucchini seeds, well, not the seeds, the zucchini plants that I like to grow are not your traditional sort of dark fleshed ones. I like the ones that are lighter green and they're almost striped too. This is maybe really strange, but I think that sometimes normal zucchini tastes fishy. But these don't taste like that to me. They stay really crunchy even if they get huge. They're just as prolific. So ever since a friend told me about these and I started planting them, I have not grown any other kind. So definitely zucchini. And I can easily plant those in our backyard. The plants get absolutely massive, but that's okay. I mean, it's kind of fun for the kids too. All right, here's a hot pepper, which I started, I can't remember. I think I started these from seed and then transplanted them last year. And they did grow, but again, our growing season is so small. I actually dehydrated some of these in one of my dehydrating videos, so that was kind of fun. Okay, winter squash. Sorry, I hear somebody talking outside. I don't know what that's all about. Okay. Herbs. Put herbs here. I'm a little conflicted on herbs. I tried herbs last year and they didn't do that great. While I like fresh herbs, I don't know. I'm going to put that on I need to think about that list, or maybe just narrow my list down a little bit. All right. But I do have some rosemary seeds, some parsley. Oh, you know what? I grew parsley last year. We mixed it in with the carrots and it was delicious, and I dehydrated it. I just remembered that. I'm totally going to grow that. And if you're a gardener, you might know this, but it's like the flavor of things that are fresh just don't compare. Even if it's organic, even if it's from like a great source, there's just a huge difference. There just is. All right, carrots. I absolutely love carrots. I love growing carrots, but I'm not sure that that's going to happen this year. Okay, I'm going to put all my pumpkins and squash off to the side. I have pie pumpkins, kabocha, squash. Okay, there's another carrot, oregano, carrot. The other thing is Johnny's Selected Seeds sells pelleted seed with some of their things, especially if they're smaller. Let me show you one of these, which are great for things like carrots that are really a pain to thin out. So even though they're very tiny, they're like encapsulated with a little bit of organic matter. I think it's like a clay or something. They make it a whole lot easier to plant so that you don't have to thin. And thinning carrots, anything with a long root, like a beet, carrots, those are like, I don't like thinning those because I feel like I'm just going to mess up the other ones that are there. Although beets sprouts usually a couple of seeds, a couple of plants per seed. So each individual seed contains like 2 to 4, it seems, actual plants that sprout. Another pumpkin. Now this will be all stuff that we can do if we do the farm. Another squash. There's tons of space at the farm. And then Swiss chard. Now I do have some Swiss chard in my basement still. I think instead of chard, I'm going to grow kale this year. And the reason for that is I can't remember what the name of it is, but I think it's oxalates that is present in some greens, not all greens, but like spinach, chard, there's a couple. And if you have like kidney issues, it can be advised to like kind of reduce that. None of us have kidney issues, but I just figured if I'm gonna be growing it, I'm just gonna grow something that's like not even like doesn't really even have anything like that going on. I don't know. Plus I still have some. So we're gonna do kale, which I need to put down because I don't even know if I have any. Okay. Radish. We grew French breakfast radish last year and it was awesome. So I'm going to make sure I put that here. If you have a favorite kind of radish, throw it in the comments. We've got French breakfast, and I don't know if I have any other kinds. Champion was the one that my grandparents always did. If it wasn't Champion, it wasn't radish. Okay. Cylindra beets. This was another one that I purchased intentionally to be usable in our backyard because they're long and cylindrical, and so they work in containers. However, my beets grew horribly. I did pickle them. There wasn't a lot. I maybe got like 5 jars of pickled beets, which is fine. And the beets turned out great. The pickled beets did, but it just was not worth the space in our limited area. So that's a no this year. I feel like if we have larger space, so let's go, maybe I would do beets. And I probably wouldn't buy more. There's quite a few in here. I probably would just try to grow what we have and then harvest that instead of buy more. Okay, so basil, that's always a yes. And that is just one that just continues to produce. Oh, and it's fresh basil is amazing. Okay, this is a patty pan squash. I don't know that I'm going to do that this year. I'm going to put this over here with the squash. I don't think I'm going to do that this year. I'm going to do the big zucchini, like the green zucchini that we talked about. But I don't know that I'm going to do. Those little ones are so fun for kids because they're just like these little, you can cook them as individual servings, which is kind of fun. Okay, we talked about radish, and I still haven't come across another radish. Another thing I don't know that I'm going to grow, maybe I will, lettuce. We did grow lettuce last year, and it did well, and it does continue to produce. The cool climate, okay, I guess I need to do lettuce. So put lettuce down. And I think I have a few different kinds. And I bought ones that specifically weren't bitter because I don't like how it seems like homegrown lettuce can get bitter, can bolt, things like that. Okay, there's another pumpkin. I love growing pumpkins. There's another tomato. That's a no. Lemon balm is one that I grew last year from seed, like not transplanted, and it grew so well. In fact, I have it dehydrated right here. And so I just crinkle some of that up in like a tea steeper. And my kids have been pushing on this, but you just put it in here and then you just throw it in your water. And it's super, super good flavor. So I'm actually going to grow more of that this year. I thought it seemed like maybe lemon balm was a little bit of like a specialty or maybe like a not common plant to find already started. But as the season started last year, I found started lemon balm plants in stores that I didn't expect to find them in. Okay. I did try to start some tomatillos last year. It didn't go well. If I'm going to do those, I'm going to do them from a starter plant. I'm going to do tomato and tomatillos as starts, both. Because I still really want to try. And then once the seeds that I started didn't do well, I just kind of gave up on the whole thing. All right, for that year. Sage. Sage is a really easy plant to grow. And I know I dehydrated a bunch. It's in the cabinet that you're attached to, so you would shake all over if I opened it. But definitely growing sage. It's so easy. And it's so good with like chicken. My dad has this like bush. He lives in a climate where it doesn't die throughout the winter. And so you can just keep going. And it's huge. It's massive. So they just grabs like handfuls of sage and just even like stuffs basically a whole chicken with like sage and garlic and stuff. Oh, it's so good. Anyway, but sage grows really, really easy. Shishito peppers, that's a no because it's a hot pepper. I'm mildly am considering growing bell peppers if we have farm space. And I would only grow green bell pepper. Okay, daikon radish. I love daikon radish. It's really good to put in fermented foods, like if you make like a veggie kraut, or a kimchi and ferment it. Daikon radish is phenomenal. And it only has a 49-day grow. I don't know. I would like to grow this one, but it's just going to depend. So I'm going to put that one on my hopeful list. Okay, another flower. Parsnips. Oh, I got pelleted parsnips last year. I was so smart when I did that. Parsnip seed. Whoop. Parsnip seed is super fragile. They're like, they remind me of like a feather. And I love parsnips. They are so tasty. So you can see these are a lot bigger than the carrot pelleted seed. So that I'm going to put on my yes list. They're so sweet. If you've ever used parsnips, I love putting them in any kind of soup, any kind of broth. The sweetness, you can taste the sweetness that it infuses it. I didn't try making soups or anything like that. I mainly would use them in broth, or making like parsnip fries. Oh my gosh, so good. Okay, I think the last, oh, that's lemon balm. Okay, I think the last thing here is the cucumbers. Okay, we did a bunch of cucumbers last year. Well, actually the last couple of years. And it's so funny because our neighbors always talk about it when they start to hit the fence, and then they crawl over the fence and they just become a jungle. But they grow really well. We just put them right in our soil. We don't start those seeds. We don't put those seeds in containers. Now, one thing when you're growing vegetables in your backyard, you need to be mindful of, depending on where you live, your soil. I'm not talking like pH and having the right nutrients, but we live in a very dense area, and our soil was very highly contaminated with lead. So you want to make sure that that's not the case. Or if you do have an issue with something like that, that you're mindful about what you're planting where. So for example, I would not plant, even though we've dealt with the issue in our backyard, I still am cautious and don't want to plant anything directly in the soil that I would be eating directly. But something like the zucchini, the cucumbers, those go fine straight in the soil because we're eating fruit that's coming off the vine that's planted in the soil. So, but here's the thing. Okay, so I bought 3 different types of cucumber, and then I got a free one when I ordered my Jung seed. Jung? I don't know. But they gave us this for free. And I tried growing them. They seemed to take a while to get going, but once they started, they were huge. They were absolutely like huge. And I have to be honest, I wasn't like a super big fan of the flavor for a couple of reasons. Number one, so this is an Armenian pale green. So any kind of cucumber like this, I probably would not get unless it specifically calls out the things that I didn't like about this one. And I think I planted, yeah, there's no more seeds in here. So I can just throw that. But they were kind of dry. Like they weren't juicy the way that I associate cucumbers to be. The other thing is that it was not that classic cucumber flavor. So a lot of cucumbers that every other time I've grown cucumbers, even though they've been different varieties, like the straight eights or the divas or whatever it is, I think we have an Adam Gherkin, yep, here. They all still taste really cucumbery, whereas this did not. And I like that. So, but I really, really thought that our cucumbers did awesome last year. It looks like I didn't plant any straight eights, but I did plant some Diva, and I did plant some of the Adam Gherkin, and I absolutely loved our cucumbers last year. They were so amazing. They were so tasty. I had full intentions of pickling and fermenting, but we ate them as fast as they produced, and we had so many. I mean, I would have like a pile of cucumbers, and I would chop them up, put in olive oil, balsamic vinegar, a little salt, a little basil sometimes, not necessarily like dried basil, feta cheese if we had. It was like amazing, and like the whole family would just like devour it so quick. Like it would not go in the fridge. That's how quick it was. So we ate so much of that. So cucumbers is like high on my list. That's like if something happened and I needed to only plant one thing, it would be cucumbers, without a doubt. So okay, so on the grow list, we've got peas, and this is already stuff we have. Peas, zucchini, parsley, kale. That's the one I mentioned I didn't think I had any of, and I didn't come across any. So the French breakfast, and I think I probably have enough because I did some like quick pickles. Well, that's daikon. I did some quick pickles with the radish last year. Oh yeah, there's plenty. But for the most part, we just eat fresh. But when it was too abundant, we just, I pickled some. Basil. Okay, I only saw one lettuce here, so I'm going to get a little bit more of that because I'm pretty sure I had at least 2 different varieties. So I'm going to check into that. I've got lemon balm, the tomatillos and tomatoes, those will be starts. I don't have that. Sage, I have that. Parsnips, cucumber. And I'm actually going to get some more cucumber of those 2 that we really like. So fresh eating. I think I might try to get another variety of radish. If you have a favorite radish variety, throw it in the comments. We've got the French breakfast, the daikon, which is different than like the red globe style. I think I'm going to get like a globe radish. Okay. Beets was like a no-go. But if we did, it would be from here. Tomatoes. Yes, all the squash and pumpkins, that'll depend on space. I would really love to can corn, but there's a few things that I would like to try to like can and preserve this year that I'm probably not going to be growing in bulk, and that's things involving potatoes, cabbage, and corn are things that I wrote down here. And tomatoes. Last year, even though I grew a bunch of tomatoes, I still bought tomatoes in bulk from a local person. And the reason that that's nice is if you're preserving and you have it all at one time, it really condenses your work into a short period of time because canning is a huge process. It's a huge undertaking. And so if you can condense your work instead of doing like a jar a day or every other day, and then just resources too. Every time you're pouring the water in your water bath canner or your pressure can or whatever, you're starting your stove, you're doing all that. It's taking resources as well. So that's pretty much all of the seeds I have. So things I need to get is kale. I really like dinosaur kale. I've also done the red Russian one. I think it's a red Russian. Those 2 varieties, they grow fantastic. I don't know that I've come across a kale that doesn't grow well. So I'm going to look for those types of kale. Another type of lettuce that isn't bitter, of course. This one is Edox. It's the Bib butter. Okay, it's the Butterhead Bib. So that's like a greenish one. So I think I'm going to try to find a red one to complement it. I liked having the red lettuce last year. And then our tomatillo starts, and then extra cucumber. And I think that's it. So then if I am able, I will get potatoes and onions. Okay. I think that's it. All right, so if you have anything to add that is like a must grow, okay, those are all done. I tried starting onion seeds last year for the first time, and it did not go well. Yeah, so those are all my piles here. I'm gonna separate them out a little bit with some rubber bands. Another thing, I'm just gonna quick go on a tangent for a minute here. Pro gardening tangent. So if you're hanging on for this, if you've hung on this long, I appreciate that. So I read an article just the other day about this list called the Dirty Dozen. If you have seen this Dirty Dozen list, say yes in the comments. And it's basically a list of vegetables that are considered to be the most highly contaminated with pesticides conventionally grown. I don't think that that includes organic stuff usually, just because organic stuff, even though it has pesticides on it, there's a different group of pesticides they can use. So, but the list was put out this year, and I think blueberries and green beans popped on for the first time. And the list usually contains the following. This is a rough kind of what I keep in mind. Strawberries, not clementines, strawberries, peaches, nectarines, plums, grapes, bell peppers, blueberries and green beans were added. Anything basically with like a thin skin is kind of what I try to use as like my gauge for that. And the article that I was talking about was just talking about the different kinds of pesticides, how they test, the sample sizes. They found such an abundance of pesticides on these fruits and vegetables. And some of them had there were some samples that had over 20 different detected pesticides on the sample, which I think is just insane. And some of the things that were detected, even, especially they were talking about the new items on there. So like the green beans and blueberries, especially the green beans, they were saying that there were chemicals found on there that have been banned by the EPA, yet there's still residues being found on there, including some organic samples. So I try to buy organic food because I just know that inherently there's going to be potentially less offensive chemicals on it. And it's at least a little bit more regulated, but at the same time, they can be grown across the road from an organic farm that's spraying, and residues can travel, and all that kind of stuff. So I think just one thing that my grandparents really instilled in me is growing your own food. And I think that when I read articles like this, it just sort of drives home those things that I was taught as just kind of like the way we do it. Like my grandparents always had a garden, and my great grandma always had a garden. On and on and on. But yeah. Anyway, it just reiterates the importance of gardening for me, because even trying my best efforts to do organic stuff, it's just going to come across Now, I'm not super concerned about buying organic seed because I am growing these things organically. That's just the seed that it starts from. It's not the plant that's growing. So as much as I can. And then if you find local growers, like some of the stuff I talked about, we've purchased in bulk, the tomatoes, green beans, speaking of green beans, like cabbage, carrots, onions. We bought like bulk quantities of these things. I know that they don't put things on their crops, because I know who they are. In fact, I'm really hoping that I can get some tours going with some of these local growers and show you their operations, because I know they're starting seeds, even though we just got another like 5 inches of snow last night, and our snow is so high. It's still melting. Spring is coming. I got my garden list. I'm going to try to get an order put together pretty quick here, and I think I'll be set. And that's really great. I only have a few things to get, and I like not going overboard, even though it's really fun to look at seeds. We didn't talk about flowers at all, but I did show all the varieties of flowers that I have in those videos from last year, in my last year seed haul videos. So as I was kind of getting them and looking at them, I showed them. So anyway, they're there if you want to see that. Other than that, that's all I've got. No comments. It was just me rattling for 40 minutes. Thanks you guys for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we will see you soon.